I put the key in the lock and it wouldn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. I rang the doorbell of my own house and my brother opened the door with a kid on his hip. He looked at me like I was a delivery nobody ordered. "What are you doing here?" Behind him, I could see toys on the floor, furniture I didn't recognize, and a woman in the kitchen I'd seen maybe twice in my life. "Mom and Dad didn't tell you? The house is mine." I had just spent 18 hours on a plane. 8 years paying the mortgage on that house from the other side of the world. And my brother was standing at my door in a bathrobe asking what I was doing there. Before I go on, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever dedicated years of your life to a promise someone just forgot to keep, hit like and subscribe. Because what happened next is the part nobody saw coming. But let's go back to the beginning. 8 years ago, I had just graduated. 22 years old, diploma in hand, and a job offer in Asia that sounded like something out of a movie. One of those movies where the main character is too naive to realize the script isn't going in her favor. The situation at home was this. My parents were drowning. Mortgage 3 months behind, letters from the bank showing up every week, my dad working overtime, and my mom pretending everything was under control. Turns out my maternal grandmother had passed away a few months earlier and left my mom the lake house. The one where the whole family used to spend vacations when I was a kid. It wasn't some mansion. It was a wooden house with a creaky porch and a dock where my grandpa taught me how to fish. But it was ours. It was memory. The problem? The lake house needed a massive renovation. Roof, plumbing, electrical, everything. And my parents didn't have money to keep up with the house they were living in, let alone fix up another one. My dad suggested the obvious. Sell the lake house, pay off the mortgage, breathe. My mom wouldn't let him. That house belonged to my mother. I'm not selling it. And that was that. Discussion over. My mom had this particular talent for turning any financial decision into an emotional issue that nobody was allowed to touch. The lake house was sacred. The mortgage that was about to eat the family alive was just a detail. That's when my mom came up with the idea. She sat down with me at the kitchen table on a Tuesday night, poured coffee. When my mom poured coffee outside of normal hours, it meant she wanted something, and said, "Take that job in Asia. I thought you guys would think it was too far. It is far, but it's an opportunity. And while you're there, you can send money back so we can cover the mortgage payments. In the meantime, your dad and I will slowly fix up the lake house. When you come back, we'll move to the lake, and this house will be yours." She said that looking me straight in the eyes. My dad was right there beside her, nodding with that nod he did whenever he agreed with my mom, which was always. "The house would be mine? Yours. You'll be paying for it anyway. It's an investment." Investment. That was the word she used. And me, at 22 with a diploma that still smelled like fresh ink, I looked at that deal and saw logic. I'd go to another country, learn another language, gain professional experience that would set me apart when I came back. And in the end, I'd have a house. My house. Everybody wins. I said yes that night. The plane landed in Seoul at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday, and I didn't understand a thing. Literally. Not a single sign. Not a single announcement. Not a single conversation. I'd done 3 months of Korean on an app, and all I could say was thank you and where's the bathroom, which in practice covers about 80% of what you need in the first few days. But for the other 20%, I was completely lost. The apartment the company set up was about 200 square feet. It fit a twin bed, a 2-burner stove, and a closet that doubled as a wall. The bathroom was the shower. There was no separation. It was all the same space with a drain in the middle. When I took a shower, the toilet took a shower too. Work was a whole other story. 12, 14-hour shifts, rigid hierarchy. You didn't disagree with the boss. You didn't leave before him. You didn't eat lunch before he ate lunch. In the first few weeks, I made a cultural mistake every single day. I used the manager's name without the honorific title. I handed over a document with one hand instead of two. I sat in the wrong seat at a meeting. Every slip-up earned a look, a silence, a polite correction that stung worse than being yelled at. I cried in the office bathroom. That tiny bathroom where everything was automatic. The flush, the sink, the dryer. And I'd sit there on the floor trying to swallow the tears before the next person walked in. I wanted to call my mom and tell her I couldn't do it. That it was too much. That the world was too big and I was too small to be there. But then the first paycheck hit, and I opened the bank app, calculated the mortgage payment, and made the transfer. 3 minutes. The money left my account in Seoul and landed in my parents' account on the other side of the planet. I called my mom. "I sent it. We got it, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." And that sentence fixed everything. For a few days, at least. The months went by and I started adapting. Not all at once, in layers. First, I learned to eat without complaining. Then I learned to shut up at the right time. Then I learned to speak up at the right time, which is much harder. The language came slowly. Loose words that turned into sentences that turned into conversations. I still made mistakes, but I understood. The work was tough, but it was good. I was learning things nobody at my college had even mentioned. Processes, technologies, ways of thinking that were completely different from everything I knew. I took courses at night after work. I read more books in 2 years than in all 4 years of college. The apartment was still tiny, but now it had books stacked in every corner. And every single month, without fail, the transfer went out. It didn't matter if I was sick. It didn't matter if it had been a short month. It didn't matter if I wanted to buy something for myself. And sometimes I did. Sometimes I'd look at a store and think I deserve this and then think, the house, and keep walking. I didn't travel. In 8 years in Asia, I didn't take a single vacation trip. Not one weekend in Tokyo. Not one week in Thailand. Not one holiday anywhere that wasn't my 200-square-foot apartment staring out the window and thinking about the porch of my house. The calls with my mom followed a script, always on Sunday. Always around 9 at night, her time. How's the lake house renovation going? Coming along, sweetheart. Slowly, but coming along. And Dad? Working. And Dylan? Oh, your brother's trying. Trying. That was the official word for everything my brother did. Dylan was 2 years younger than me and had a natural talent for turning every opportunity into a situation someone else had to fix for him. He married Brittany because she was pregnant. My parents paid for the wedding. With what money, I didn't ask, but I have my theories. I went. It was the only time I came back in 8 years, 4 years ago. Took a 14-hour flight, stayed 5 days, and flew back to Seoul. And everything seemed normal. The house looked the same. My parents seemed the same. Dylan seemed like the same Dylan. Charming, carefree, with that smile of someone who's never lost a single night of sleep over money in his life. Brittany was quiet. Her belly was already showing. The first kid, the reason for the wedding. My mom looked at them with that look I'd known since childhood. Protection. My brother was the one who needed protecting. I was the one who could handle herself. I went back to Seoul at peace. Everything was on track. 4 more years and I'd be going home. Those 4 years passed fast and slow at the same time. Fast because work got intense. I was leading projects now. Traveling to client meetings. Presenting ideas I'd developed myself. Slow because every Sunday night I'd call my mom and hear the same vague answers. And every month I'd open the bank app and send the same transfer, and every night I'd lie in the same tiny apartment and think, not much longer now. I could have bought an apartment in Seoul. With what I was making, I could have invested, could have built a life there. But I didn't want a life there. I wanted my house. The house I was paying for. The house my mom promised would be mine. 8 years of transfers, 96 payments. Not one late, not one missed. Every single one with the same description on the bank statement. Mortgage PMT. Have you ever dedicated years of your entire life to a promise someone made looking you in the eyes? Tell me in the comments. The call came on a Wednesday at 3 a.m, Seoul time. I knew something was wrong because my mom never called outside of Sunday. I answered with my heart pounding. Your grandfather passed away. My mom's father, Grandpa Gene, the man who taught me to fish on the dock at the lake house, who called me my little engineer since I was 7 because I liked taking things apart, who used to sit on the porch with his coffee and stare at the lake like he was having the most important conversation of his life with the water. I couldn't make it to the funeral. Work, the distance, the cost, everything together made it impossible on short notice. I called my mom that same day. She was strangely composed. He didn't suffer. It was in his sleep. I wish I could have been there, Mom. I know, sweetheart. He knew you were far away. He understood. Silence. Then she said with that tone I already knew, the tone of someone changing the subject to what's actually the main subject. Your grandfather left me his house. Grandpa's house. It was a big property in an old, expensive neighborhood. He'd lived there alone for the last 8 years, ever since my grandma died. The house was way too big for one person, but he never wanted to leave. Now it was my mom's. Your father and I are going to move in over the next few weeks. The house is big. It needs people inside. And the lake house? We'll figure that out later. Right now the focus is the move. The call was short. My mom hung up in a hurry. She had things to take care of, she said. I sat on the bed in my apartment staring at the ceiling. My parents are moving to Grandpa's house. The lake house was renovated over the years. And the mortgage house, my house, is free. It's time to go home. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I went to the office and resigned. My boss was silent for about 10 seconds. In a Korean office, 10 seconds of silence is practically an emotional earthquake. He said he was sorry to lose me. I said I was sorry to go. And I meant it. In 8 years, that place had become more of a home than the house I was paying for. I bought the ticket that same day. Didn't tell my parents. I wanted it to be a surprise. I packed 8 years of life into 3 suitcases. I looked out the window of my 200-square-foot apartment one last time. The city stretched all the way to the horizon. I knew the name of every street in my neighborhood. I knew where to get the best ramen at 2 in the morning. I knew how to greet the building doorman with the exact right bow. 8 years, 3 suitcases, a 14-hour flight, and a house waiting for me on the other side. The plane landed at 4 in the afternoon. Immigration line, baggage carousel, arrival gate, everything in slow motion. I grabbed a cab and gave the address. In the cab, I kept rehearsing. I'd ring the doorbell. My mom would answer. Or my dad, if she'd already moved to Grandpa's house. They'd see the suitcases and understand. She's back. Their daughter is back. And I'd walk into my house, go up to my room, and sleep in my bed for the first time in 8 years. The street appeared. Everything looked the same. The same houses, the same pavement with that crack near the streetlight, the same tree that got huge in the summer. But when the cab stopped in front of the house, something was off. The garden had changed. My mom had rose bushes. They were gone. In their place was one of those plastic kids' play sets, red and yellow, tossed on the lawn. The curtains were different. And in the garage, where my dad's car used to be, there was a gray minivan with stick figure family stickers on the back window. I paid the cab, dragged my 3 suitcases to the door, pulled the key out of my pocket. The same key I'd taken to Asia 8 years ago, the one that sat in a drawer in my Seoul apartment as a reminder of what was waiting for me. Put it in the lock. It wouldn't turn. Tried again. Nothing. My stomach dropped. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps. A kid screaming something inside. The door opened. My brother, Dylan, in a bathrobe, with a kid on his hip. The younger one, probably around 3. He looked at me, and for half a second, I saw something cross his face that wasn't surprise. It was something worse. It was the face of someone who realizes that somebody just found out something they weren't supposed to find out yet. "What are you doing here?" Behind him, I could see what used to be my parents' living room. Now there was a foam playmat on the floor, a huge TV on the wall, toys scattered everywhere. In the kitchen, a woman, Brittany, was heating something up in the microwave. She looked at me and then at Dylan with that look that says, "You deal with this." "Mom and Dad didn't tell you?" Dylan said. He shifted the kid on his hip like he was getting ready to say something completely normal. "The house is mine. They gave it to me." "When?" "After you came for the wedding and went back to Asia. They said I needed a place for the boys." "After I went back to Asia. When I was here for the wedding, my room was still my room. My stuff was still there. And the second I got on the plane back, they handed everything over to my brother. And I was paying the mortgage this whole time?" Dylan shrugged. Literally shrugged. "That's between you and Mom and Dad, not me." I looked inside one last time. The room that used to be mine was at the end of the hall. The door was open. I could see it from where I stood. It had been turned into a kid's room. Walls painted light blue. A crib. Glow-in-the-dark star stickers on the ceiling. I didn't say a word. I pulled my suitcases back to the sidewalk, called another cab. The hotel was 15 minutes away. Cheap, clean, impersonal. Exactly the kind of place you go when you have nowhere to be, but you need a door that closes. I sat on the bed with my 3 suitcases around me and called my mom. She picked up on the 3rd ring. I could hear the echo. Grandpa's house has those high ceilings that make everything reverberate. "Mom, I'm here." "Here where?" "Here, I'm back. Got in today." Silence. 2 seconds. 3. "Oh, what a surprise. Why didn't you tell us?" "I went to the house. Dylan's living there." More silence. I could hear her breathing, recalculating. "Oh, sweetheart. Yeah. We needed to talk to you about that. Come have dinner tomorrow. Here at Grandpa's house. The whole family will be there." I almost laughed. The whole family. As if we were a family that has dinner together, and not a family where a daughter finds out she's been scammed for 8 years, live, on her own doorstep. "Sure," I said. I hung up. I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the hotel ceiling. White, generic, no history. So different from the ceiling of my apartment in Seoul that had a water stain in the corner I stared at every night. So different from the ceiling I imagined when I thought about my house, my bed, my room that now had star stickers and a crib. The next day, at 7 in the evening, a cab dropped me off at Grandpa's house. I hadn't been there since I was a kid. It was bigger than I remembered. Dark wooden door, huge garden, 3-car garage. My grandpa had lived there alone for the last 8 years, ever since my grandma passed. Now my parents were living there with the echo of a life that wasn't theirs. The table was set. My mom had made that chicken she always made when she wanted everything to seem normal. My dad was at the head of the table, older, quieter, more shrunken. Dylan and Brittany were there with the kids, 2 boys running around the house like they'd been born in it. The conversation started light. My mom asked about Asia, about work, about what I was going to do now, like I'd just come back from vacation. Mom, you promised me the house. My mom's fork froze in the air for half a second. Then it kept moving. Things changed, sweetheart. Your brother needed it more. He has kids. You're single, no commitments. You've always been independent. We knew you'd be fine. I paid the mortgage for 8 years, and we're grateful. Very. But the house, your brother needed stability. I looked at my dad. He was staring at his plate. Dylan was scrolling on his phone. Brittany took the kids to the living room. Then I get the lake house. My mom stopped chewing. This time she really stopped. Mom, the lake house. You're here at Grandpa's house. Dylan has the house. I get the lake. That's the bare minimum. She set her fork down on her plate. Looked at me the way you look at a child who just asked for something impossible. The lake house has already been sold. The sound disappeared. Not in some dramatic movie way. More like when you pull out your earbuds and the world goes silent for a second. Sold. We needed the money. Your grandfather's house has debts, back taxes, maintenance. We couldn't hold on to both. My dad cleared his throat. It was the first time he'd opened his mouth all night. You can stay in the guest room until you get on your feet if you want. The house is big. A guest room. In my grandfather's house. Offered as a consolation by a man who stayed silent while his wife sold everything I'd paid for. I looked at him and saw what I always saw. A man who agreed. Always agreed. His cowardice was just as damaging as my mother's manipulation. But at least she had the nerve to do it. He just let it happen. The lake house. My grandmother's house. The house where my grandpa taught me to fish. The house my mom refused to sell 8 years ago to pay off the mortgage. Because it belonged to my mother, I'm not selling it. Now she sold it. Without telling me. Without consulting me. Without offering it to me. I didn't have the house. I didn't have the lake house. I had nothing. 8 years, 96 transfers, every cent documented. And I was sitting in a dead man's house eating chicken with the family that used me as an ATM. I got up from the table. Nobody tried to stop me. I grabbed my bag from the hook by the front door, opened that heavy wooden door, and walked out. The hotel room had a thin crack in the wall that ran from the corner of the window up to the ceiling. I stared at it for 3 straight hours. 8 years living in tiny apartments on the other side of the world, and I was still staring at the walls of rooms that weren't mine. My dad's offer kept spinning in my head. Guest room. The house is big. As if 8 years of bank transfers bought a guest mattress and a seat at the table where I should sit quietly and be grateful. I didn't cry. I think I'd run out somewhere between Seoul and the door that wouldn't open. Instead, my brain did something different. It started calculating. 96 transfers. The amount of each one. The total. The interest the bank charged that I covered. Late fees that existed before I started paying and got rolled into the balance. The homeowner's insurance my parents tacked onto the payment without telling me. Everything. Every cent that left my account in Seoul and went into theirs. I grabbed my laptop. Opened the bank app. 8 years of statements. Every transfer with the same description. Mortgage PMT. I started adding it up. The number kept growing, and with every extra zero, I felt something harden inside me. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Then I opened the messages. 8 years of conversations with my mom. Most of it was routine. How are you? Sent the money. The renovations coming along. But buried in there, like gold nuggets in a river of small talk, were the promises. When you come back, the house is yours, sweetheart. Think of it as an investment. You're building your future. We're so proud. This house is going to be your reward. Hang in there a little longer. When you come back, you'll never have to worry about a roof over your head again. Funny thing, the promises were all in the first few years. Before Dylan's wedding. Before they gave him the house. After that, the messages shifted without me noticing. There was no more, the house will be yours. It was just, we're so proud. You're doing so great. It's so nice that you enjoy the work. Compliments, encouragement. Never another mention of the house. I hadn't noticed until I read them all at once. They stopped making promises at the exact moment they decided not to keep them. Everyone with a date. Everyone in writing. Everyone from my mother, who probably never imagined that text messages could be used as evidence. I saved everything. Every statement, every message, every receipt, organized it all into a folder. In the morning, I was going to find a lawyer. What would you do in my place? Tell me in the comments. The lawyer's office was on the third floor of a commercial building downtown. Small office, desk covered in files, diplomas on the wall. His name was Paul. 50-ish, reading glasses. The kind of man who talks slowly because he knows every word costs money. I laid everything out on his desk. Bank statements, messages, complete timeline. He read in silence for 20 minutes. I counted every minute on the clock behind his head. Legally, he said, taking off his glasses, the house is in your brother's name. The transfer was made by your parents, who were the registered owners. There's no way to directly reverse the gift. My stomach sank. But, he put his glasses back on, these payment records combined with these messages constitute unjust enrichment. Your parents financially benefited from your money under a clear promise of something in return that was never delivered. Your mother's messages function as an agreement, informal, but documented. Is that worth anything? It's worth a lot. You can sue for full restitution of what you paid, plus interest and monetary adjustment. He paused, jotted something on a piece of paper, and turned it toward me. The total amount, with everything calculated, is more than what the house is worth today. I just stared at him. More than what the house is worth. Your parents will need to pay. If they don't have the cash, they'll have to sell something. The lake house was already sold. The mortgage house is in Dylan's name. What's left is Grandpa's house. How long does it take? If they negotiate, weeks. If they go to court, months. But with this documentation, he tapped the stack of papers lightly. They won't want to go to court. I left the office and walked the streets for a long time. The sun was setting and the sidewalks had that orange late-afternoon glow I hadn't seen in years. In Seoul, the sunset was different. Grayer, faster, squeezed between buildings. Here the sky was wide. I'd forgotten what it was like to have sky. I picked up the phone, called Paul's office. Send the notice. My mom called the next day, not on Sunday, not at 9 at night, at 7:30 in the morning. What is this? Good morning to you too, Mom. You're suing us, your own family? For God's sake, what's gotten into you? You promised me the house. I paid for 8 years. You gave it to Dylan and sold the lake house. I have nothing. You have your health. You have your experience. You have your degree. Your brother has 2 kids. My brother has the house I paid for. He needed it more than you. Every time she said that, he needed it more, I heard the same thing I've been hearing since I was a kid. Dylan is fragile. Dylan is innocent. Dylan needs protection. And I'm strong. I figure things out. I can take it. I'm the pillar nobody needs to hold up because I stand on my own. The problem with being the pillar is that nobody asks if the pillar is tired. My dad called that same afternoon, his voice shaking, not from anger, from fear. Your mother isn't sleeping. I haven't slept well in 8 years, Dad. We can work this out as a family. The family worked it out without me when they gave the house to Dylan. Now I work it out my way. Dylan texted that night. Think about my kids. They didn't do anything wrong. I didn't respond. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. My nephews, who I barely knew, hadn't done anything wrong. But I hadn't done anything wrong either. And I spent 8 years in a 200-square-foot apartment, paying for the house where they were sleeping comfortably. My parents tried to negotiate. First came the guilt. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? You sent me to the other side of the world to pay your bills. Then came the anger. You're ungrateful. Ungrateful for demanding what I'm owed. Then came the bargaining. We'll pay you back little by little. No lawyers. Little by little meant never. I knew that trick. The full amount, 60 days, or I'll see you in court. The 60 days started ticking. During that time, I did what I did best. I worked. The experience in Asia, the courses, the language, the ideas, everything I thought would set me apart when I came back was even more valuable than I'd imagined. The American job market was hungry for people with international experience. I went to 3 interviews in the first week. In the second week, I got 2 offers. By the third, I signed with a company in New York. The salary was double what I'd made in Seoul, and this time every cent was mine. While I was building my new life, my parents were dismantling theirs. Their lawyer called Paul trying to negotiate a reduction. Paul said no. They tried to claim the transfers were voluntary help from their daughter. Paul showed the messages. They tried to say the agreement was too vague. Paul read out loud, "When you come back, the house is yours, sweetheart. With date, time, and my mother's name as the sender." They didn't have a case, and they knew it. The problem was the money. The restitution amount, with 8 years of interest and adjustments, was steep. My parents didn't have that in cash. The money from the lake house sale was already committed to the debts and repairs on Grandpa's house. and the mortgage house was in Dylan's name. They couldn't sell what wasn't theirs anymore. That left one option: Grandpa's house. My mom called on day 42. Her voice was different. It wasn't anger. It wasn't manipulation. It was something I'd never heard from her before: defeat. "If we pay you, I'll have to sell my father's house. I know. This house is the only thing I have left of him." I stayed silent. She kept going. "Your grandmother died and I got the lake house. I renovated that house thinking of them. Now your grandfather died and I have his house. And you want to take it from me. Mom, when Grandma died and you inherited the lake house, Dad suggested selling it to pay off the mortgage. You refused. Said it belonged to your mother. Instead, you sent me to the other side of the world to pay the mortgage with my money. 8 years, Mom. And when you didn't need me anymore, you gave the house to Dylan and sold the lake house without telling me. I did what I thought was best for the family. You did what you thought was best for you, and now the consequences are yours." On day 58, 2 days before the deadline, my parents' lawyer called Paul. They wanted to negotiate. Paul called me right after. I was at my new office in New York on the 32nd floor of a building overlooking the East River. The contrast was so absurd it almost didn't feel real. 8 months ago, I was in a cheap hotel with 3 suitcases. Now, I was answering the phone in a chair that cost more than my entire apartment in Seoul. "They want to pay," Paul said, "but they're asking for a reduction. They want to use the money from the lake house sale. The amount covers most of it, but not all. You'd lose a few thousand." "How much exactly?" He said the number. I did the math in my head. It was money. It wasn't nothing. But the alternative was months of court. More legal fees, more wear and tear. And I'd already lost 8 years. "I'll take it. Close the deal." "Are you sure?" "Close it, Paul." 2 days later, he confirmed. "The lake house buyer's deposit cleared. The money is yours." "And Grandpa's house?" "Already listed. It'll take a few months to sell." I hung up, looked out the window. The river was reflecting the afternoon sun, and the city stretched as far as I could see. I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel joy. I felt something quieter than that. Something that doesn't have a name in either of the 2 languages I speak. In the weeks that followed, I found out what happened. My parents sold Grandpa's house for less than it was worth. They bought a smaller apartment in the city. Comfortable, but nothing like the house where my mom had planned to grow old. Their retirement income covered the bills. They weren't struggling. But my mom, who used to eat dinner in a dining room with chandeliers and a portrait of her father on the wall, was now eating in a 60-square-foot eat-in kitchen. It wasn't suffering. It was consequence. The irony was almost perfect. My mom, who refused to sell the lake house 8 years ago to pay the mortgage, now lost the lake house and her father's house. Both of them. Because of the consequences of her own choices. Dylan stayed in the house I paid for. He never paid a single cent for it and probably never will. But I didn't sue Dylan. I sued the ones who made me the promise and the ones who broke it. The family cut me off. My mom sent one last message. "I hope the money keeps you company at night." My dad sent nothing. Dylan sent, "Hope you're happy." Brittany blocked me on everything. I didn't respond to any of them. 6 months later, I signed the papers on my apartment in New York, view of Central Park. The dream I'd had since I saw it in a magazine as a teenager and said, "One day I'm going to live across from that." And everyone laughed. Nobody's laughing now. It wasn't huge. It wasn't a penthouse. It was a 1-bedroom with a balcony that fit a chair and a cup of coffee. But from the window, I could see the trees in the park changing color with the seasons, and that was enough. I furnished the apartment slowly. Every piece of furniture chosen by me. Every painting. Every mug. Every towel. In 8 years in Asia, I never decorated a thing. Why would I? It was temporary. Everything was temporary. Everything was waiting for the moment I'd go back home. Now I was home. My home. The first one that was truly mine. I sat on the balcony on a Sunday morning with coffee. The park was full. Families, joggers, dogs, kids. The whole city moving down below while I stayed still for the first time in 8 years. The phone didn't ring. My parents didn't call. Dylan didn't call. And I didn't call them. Not out of anger. I thought a lot about that. Whether it was anger I was feeling. It wasn't. Anger is hot. What I felt was something cold and calm, like the surface of a lake early in the morning. I didn't need them to apologize. I didn't need them to acknowledge what they did. I didn't need validation, remorse, or anything that came from them. I needed peace. And peace was exactly this. A chair, a cup of coffee, a view of the park, and the silence of someone who doesn't owe anyone a thing. The doorbell rang. It was Audrey, my neighbor from the floor below. We'd met in the elevator the first week and became friends the way it only happens when two people are starting over at the same time. She'd just gone through a divorce. I'd just finished rebuilding myself. We both needed someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. She walked in with 2 cups of coffee and a laptop under her arm. I found flights to Provence, long weekend. Leave Friday, back Monday. You and me. How much? Cheap enough that you've got no excuse. I laughed. A real laugh, the kind that comes out without asking permission. In 8 years in Asia, I didn't take a single trip, didn't take a single weekend off, didn't spend a single cent on myself. Everything was for later. Everything was for when I came back. Now I had come back, and later had finally arrived. Done. Provence. Audrey smiled and opened the laptop on the balcony table. We sat there planning. Restaurants, wineries, a little town she saw in a video that had a lavender market on Saturdays. Central Park was glowing down below in that impossible spring green. In Seoul, I used to look out my 200-square-foot window and see concrete all the way to the horizon. Now I looked out the window and saw trees. And for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't looking out the window wishing for something else. I was exactly where I wanted to be. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever paid for something someone promised and never delivered, if someone ever used your strength as an excuse to take everything from you, if you've ever started over from zero in a place you didn't know, subscribe, because this is just one of the stories I have to tell.